Welcome, everybody, to Firecat First Friday of February 2022. We have a monthly meetup that is the first Friday of every month. We gather and talk about some kind of topic that is related to what Firecat Studio does. What Firecat Studio does is experience design and usability, user research, accessibility. We get into strategies, we get into content strategy, and sometimes event strategy. And right at the nexus of content strategy and event strategy is Michael Espinosa's, one of his pet businesses. He's a busy guy and he has lots going on. But I invited my smart friend, Michael Espinosa, here to talk about how he's targeting specific people with specifically curated quality content to get them to deepen their relationship with his customers and his clients. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Michael. He will give us a presentation, but we're going to have it be a dialogue as we go.
Interactive,
I'm going to try to watch the chat. I can also get Chris to help me. I make him a co-host.
And I just have to say, Susan's done a great job with Firecat Studio and this event for many years. We were talking earlier about how long this has gone on. I remember sitting in her old office in these intimate little areas, seeing some great presentations a few years back. I guess I won't say how many years
Very
back.
many years back, so
Very
I'm not afraid to
back.
say it. Chris and I have been working together since
Yes, hi Chris.
Good times. How you doing, Michael? It's good. It's good to be back. The old gang.
Yeah. Firecat has been doing these sessions since 2008. So that's 12 years. And we're excited to get this one going.
I learned so much back then. I mean, and you steered me in certain directions I never thought I would go into.
Back at you, baby.
I was just about to say that's back at you. That's one of the things I love about this community, and everyone I'm sure listening has nodding their head that we've all had our say in this and we've all learned from each other doing this. It's just really been fantastic. And, you know, just on a small sentimental note, since it has been so long, oh my God, it's been so long. That's awesome.
I know. I remember asking Chris, I know he was probably going, oh, I can't believe he's asking me such basic questions, but he was so nice. But you were so nice and answering them so well. Anytime I needed a question answered, you did it. And I never, always remember that.
I love my youth and the patience I had then. I digress. Thank you again, Michael. I'll let you guys go.
Okay, Michael.
Let me share my screen here.
Yeah, why don't you take it away?
Let's see, make sure I'm doing this right. All right. Let's get this going. Come on. There we go. So our topic, building trust with quality content. So what's happened, I guess, is kind of a backstory is my background is in technology. I've got 30 plus years in technology. You can see some of the companies I worked for, some of the little startups there, Microsoft, Apple, Intel, and been doing technology training, different soft skills training for years. And then some years back, I started a company as Susan said, kind of a pet project in a way to aggregate the events in a city, specifically San Antonio at the beginning, because I was tired of missing events. And I said, how hard can it be? Naively, you go into these projects and these ideas thinking it can't be that hard. And then you look back and go, I don't know if I'd even do it again if I knew what I knew now. But over the years, we've learned a lot. And really what we figured out by coming up with a website that aggregated specific content like events that business professionals were interested in, we found out that content is valuable and can be used in a lot of different ways. That's kind of how we've evolved. And I want to talk about this content and how we've used it over the years to help us grow our business. grow our network, and all the different things we've done and would like to do in the future. So we've really just begun. We're currently in 20 markets right now. Our goal is 50, but COVID kind of put a damper on things because our events that we aggregate were live in-person events. So we had to pivot, and slowly as live events come back, it depends on what part of the country. And it's really interesting. Some parts of the country just have all kinds of live events. Some still have very few. So that's kind of a work in progress. And we're following all that. And we've got all
Can
that
you
data.
talk a little bit more about that? Because I find it fascinating. Where is it coming back and where is it still locked down?
So it's interesting. You would think like Austin hasn't come back nearly as fast with in-person events as I thought it would. We have, we're kind of right in the middle. So
San Antonio.
San Antonio. See, that's right. There's more than just local people on this. I apologize.
Okay.
So locally pre-COVID, we used to hit a peak of about 200 to 250 events on some really good weeks. And again, those were all live in-person events, networking events, all types of business events, trainings, and things. COVID hit, of course, nothing for a little while. And we even contemplated a couple of months there, like, this is it. This may be it. It was a good run. We enjoyed it, but maybe, we may not be able to survive through this. And I'm sure some of you have gone through that too, or went through that, or know someone who has.
TEDx San Antonio is going through it.
So, yeah, and I'd hoped that people would go virtually like we're doing now. And fortunately they did. I had a belief they would, and people, regrouped and learned how to Zoom. And we all know the history there up to this point. But what happened, they kept growing. So we probably started averaging about 50 or 60 events a week, all virtual. And then as the numbers went down, some live events would start popping up. So we're probably, like last week, for instance, in San Antonio, about 100 events, you probably have about 50, half of them in person, 40, 50% in person, and the rest virtual. So we're at about 100 events, a couple of weeks there, maybe 120. So it varies between 100 and 120. Now you take a city like Tampa, they probably have 180, 200 events. So they're just going, a lot of live events. Minnesota is doing up in Twin Cities area. They've even given the weather and all, they're still doing a fair amount of events. San Diego. So there's certain cities that have just, really, really held on and are doing a lot of events. And there's some that just have not come back. Detroit, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Charlotte's doing a fair amount. And again, we're only in 20 now. So, but when we get to all 50 of them, as we ramp up, we'll have a much better idea of the trends. But it is interesting because you can see where when the numbers around the country would go up, the COVID numbers, the use of the calendar and open rates would go down. So it would, correlation was there. And we do see an uptick here every week. So I think, I'm guessing probably by mid-February, you're going to see a lot more in-person events. Because the biggest event time of the year is right after the new year. That the spike in January is usually incredible. The usage of the calendar, the open rates are just crazy right after New Year's. After everybody's taking that break, Christmas break, they want to get out there and start networking, building their business, getting new clients, building their network. And it didn't have that pop this year that it normally does. I expected a little bigger pop than it did. Okay. But again, we had another outbreak and some strong numbers of COVID there.
Well, let's see how you do this magic.
Okay, so how we've learned the hard way. We've learned through experience. First of all, let's define what this target outreach here. Target outreach is what I call it. So it's a marketing process that it's consistently sharing relevant, valuable, and that's the key, relevant, valuable content with your target prospects to build a know, like, and trust factor. This will enable your eventual ask to be willingly granted. What do I mean by that? What we found was by sharing this content with people, and I didn't think about this when we started. I knew people found value in the events because it would take you 4 or 5 hours a week to gather all the content that we put together for free every week. And I'm not trying to brag or anything, but it's just a fact. It took us, when we first started, it would take us hours and hours to get this content together. But I wanted it for myself too. But what we found by sharing it is we started to build this know, like, and trust, which we talk about in sales all the time, with people by sharing this content and us not asking for anything per se. It's just, here, you might find this interesting. Here are events you might want to go to. We started building almost a community in a sense. And it was all types of people. We thought initially it was just business people, but people that are in larger companies started using it for different reasons. But again, it was valuable content, and people, by sharing it, they felt that they knew us. And we've got to a point where we can do an ask. Somebody who's been using our calendar for a while, we ask them, hey, would you be interested in doing this with us? Would you be interested in this? And they'll talk to us. They'll let us, they'll hear us out, where normally that's a difficult thing to do. And we built this all around email. This can be done by using a lot of different, social media. But the reason I'm really big on email is because it's really the most effective. I'll show you some numbers in a minute, but it's the most effective. I honestly believe every small business should double down on their email usage because of the control they have. You control, once you get that email address from someone, that's it. You've got that direct ability to have a conversation with them, just like a phone number. And there's no one that can take that email away from you. Now, of course, they can change the email and all that, but on average, a lot of people keep the same email. So you have a way to communicate. With social media, there's challenges. I have nothing against social media, but I look at social media as a complement to using email to deliver content. You can deliver the same content over social media to enhance the way you deliver it, but through email, you've got that control. Now, of course, there's spam filters and all that other stuff. And part of what we do is figure out how to get through directly to the inbox. That's kind of the key. That inbox is that holy grail, so to speak. Social media, algorithms can change. Facebook can. I've met so many people, their entire communication with their customers are all on social media, and then they lose their account. They get blocked. They broke the terms and conditions. Boom. And that's it. I mean, they panic, and understandably, because they have no way, that they're at the mercy of whatever social media company is, Facebook, LinkedIn, whoever. And again, I like the email because if you do your research, you can target. And that's the key here, is targeting the right people with this content, with good content. And that's what we
One-to-one
learned.
targeting is what you're talking about. We'll get there, right?
Yes. Yep. And I'm not talking about email in terms of bulk email. I'm not talking about just buying a list or going to a list and just sending out emails. That really doesn't work. There's rare cases where it's worked, and you can do research and find this company that claims, yeah, we do 10,000 emails a day and we get this much. It will work in some situations, but overall, for a small business owner, it's just not that effective. It's the targeting. Some quick numbers here. Email open rates, 15 to 25%. Click-through rate, when people click something on the email, 2.5%. Not bad. I wouldn't consider it great, but it's definitely better than Facebook's click-through rate at 0.07. But what we found by doing it with the content, the event content we use and send it to people, we get upwards of 60, 70% open rates. And then the click-through rate can be 60, 70% too, clicking on those particular events. If we send the right events out that people want, they're clicking on them. They want to know about them. So whatever you use, us using events, but we can talk about other types of content. There's podcasts, there's video, there's all kinds of content, as long as you know the right content to send to them. And that's the biggest challenge right there, the biggest content. The ROI on email, some estimates for every dollar you spend, $38 in return, versus social media, 28% return on the dollars you spend. So, again, I wouldn't hold this as gospel by any means, but if you do your own research, read about this, look at the numbers, and you'll start thinking, maybe I really should focus a little more on email, because I'll tell you, that's the weakest link in a lot of small businesses, because it's time consuming, takes a lot of work. Not that social media doesn't, but finding the right people to send that email, getting those email addresses, it's a lot of work. I advocate this kind of 5-step process. First thing, most important, is get that list, get a good list. And I'm not talking about thousands and thousands of people. I'm talking about just a short list of maybe 25, 50, 100 people that you want to target. Put together a good delivery process. And what I mean by a good delivery process is good content and a way to make sure that your content gets delivered into their inbox. People spend a lot of time and effort getting the content together, sending it out, and then when you realize it's not even getting delivered. And all that work for nothing. Put together a good way to share it. Again, email, social media, whatever. Manage that list of people. It's not a, hey, here's 50 people, let's start email, or 100, whoever, that's it. No, it's got to be managed. It's got to be looked at. Who's opening? Who's doing what? And then once you start doing that and building that relationship, you can pick up that phone and go, hey, can we meet? Can I tell you about this new product, this new service that we have to offer? And I guarantee you 90, 95% of the time, they're like, sure, because they want to reciprocate. You've given them something of value, so they don't mind taking the time and listening to you. Of course, it's got to be of good value. It's got to be the right product, but most of the time they do it. And we find that all the time. People will take our calls. People will talk to us because we've shared with them information and we've built that know, like, and trust. They feel like they have a relationship. I go to events all the time and people come up, hey, how you doing, Michael? It's like, I'd never met them before, but they feel like they know me because we've shared this content with them for so long. Making sense? Anybody questions, comments? I'm doing all the talking. Susan, anything?
Cora is asking, it's not just spam filters, but how do we get through the sheer quantity of emails that people have to deal with on a daily basis, that your message is likely to be buried? Okay,
so let's think about empathy is a word I love to use in marketing and everything I do. I always try to empathize with the person on the other side. So, and think about your situation. Think about the emails. We all get hundreds of emails. I was starting to count the other day. I must get newsletters and all that, probably 100 a day, easily 100 a day. And I would think, how do I decide what I read and what I don't read? And that's what you have to think about. What are you going to send to somebody that's going to have them open it? If you send information that is of value to them, that they need and is critical and helps them accomplish a goal they have or solve a problem, they're going to look forward to your email. You want to build content that they can't wait to open. They look forward to it. And if you don't send it, they get mad. I'll tell you, when we mess up sometimes, and unfortunately we've done it a few times, and not sent out that event email on what's going on for the day or for the week, boy, we hear right away, hey, where's my email? Hey, how come, where is it? So that I take as a great sign. That means people are expecting this. They want it. Now, again, not all of them do. So you find the right people that need and want the content that you're delivering. You're not bulk emailing. you're targeting who that content goes to. And that's the key. So they may get 50 emails by 8 o'clock in the morning, but they're going to look for yours. Any of you are podcast listeners? I'm a huge podcast listener, but there are certain podcasts I can't wait till they come out. It's like, oh God, it's Tuesday morning. Thank goodness so-and-so's podcast is coming out. And I jump on that podcast. But how many podcasts do I have listed that I listen to? 100, 150 lists of podcasts. But there's those 2 or 3 that I just can't wait to listen to. And I'm sure we're all like that. There's things we read, we look forward to, maybe sale emails of a company having a sale. It'll catch our eye, our favorite coffee, or somebody will send an email and here's 50% off today only. And we jump on an email, right? So that's how you get around that. You've got to do the
I have another idea though. So the regularity of putting things out at the beginning, when you were first doing these calendars, you didn't have that relationship of trust with people, right? And it took a while. It takes a while. You have to share generously, regularly in order to develop trust. That's one aspect. And another aspect is that you can personalize. So one of the key parts of Michael's method that really intrigued me and made me want to be in a business relationship with Michael is part of his thing. He's going to get to it in a minute, how to micro target people and then personalize content for them. Cora is a leadership coach. So she offers an instrument that helps me study myself. And then she sends me information that's about Susan and the way Susan's personality is and the way the struggles that Susan has. I'm definitely opening that email.
Exactly. And see, our goal is to, at some point, my goal in the future is I built this company, started it with the idea at some point, I want to be able to deliver to Susan the exact events that she is going to be interested for that particular week or the next 2 weeks, not the 200 events that are listed, because we solved one problem by finding events for people, but we created another one by having too long a list and people having to go through them.
Yeah, they don't want to be in a fire hose either.
No, exactly. But they'd rather get the full list and go through it and see it than not get it at all. So that's the positive. But what I want to do is, ideally, there's a list of there's probably 2 or 3 events that would really catch your eye a week when we're at full capacity, normal events. So if those events are delivered to you, and one step further is go right into your calendar, your business calendar, and they're right there sitting, when and where those events are. That's ideally what I want to get to a point. Now, not everybody needs to do that, but that's the goal for us. But like you said, the more you personalize, and that's the ultimate personalization. These 3 events are things that Susan will be interested in based on the algorithm we use. It will send it out. They go right into her calendar, and she's happy. You're happy.
Netflix, a friend of mine works in the algorithm department, data science department of Netflix, and they watch, so they can tell from their metrics which things you click on and begin to watch, and they can tell which things you watch all the way through, the things that you watch multiple times. So their ability to personalize is crazy. But she just posted today on LinkedIn saying they had to give people the ability to say, keep watching off of this one. Because people want the ability to not binge. They want to take back some of that control. I found that fascinating. But some of these big companies that give us the experiences that delight us are able to personalize so much with AI that we're going to hurt ourselves. Our eyeballs are going to bleed, right? Or we'll be drowning in podcasts because we like or follow too many of them. Cora says, like iPhones helping people manage screen time. Exactly.
Now, again, we're talking about huge companies that have unlimited budgets to do this. We're small business owners, so we're not going to have those resources, but there are products out there that can still help us do this targeting and help us with this. Every day, new startups are coming that will help us, try to do some of that for our clients. But it's amazing how many small business owners I ask, tell me the top 25 people or businesses in San Antonio or whatever city they're in you want to do business with. You know that they can use your product or service. Give me 25 of them. And how many of them can't do that? Well, we want to do business with everybody. I know that, or as many people as I know that, but give me 25 companies or individuals more specifically. That's the most of them. Give me 25 people that can use your product, that will benefit from it. And are you contacting them? Are you regularly building relationships with them?
Okay, so Lily is pointing out that the artificial intelligence is sometimes not very intelligent, that it serves up sometimes grotesquely off things. So what Michael does is, you're getting ready to get into it, right?
Go ahead. Yeah, we keep going.
He has his own, he uses his own intelligence and experience to do the targeting.
Well, yeah, and that's it. I mean, when you're a small business, you have to use what you know, and you know your customers best. You look back on who you've done business with. You know who can use your product. Unless you're brand new to the market, I understand that. You're a brand new company. But even then, if you're new, you're probably in an industry you can go research now and find out who uses your product or that type of product or service the most. It just takes work, is what it is.
Right.
Not even hard. It just takes time.
You have search LinkedIn on here. And if you're targeting at the human being level, that is an incredible free resource.
Yeah. I think LinkedIn is one of the most underutilized resources for finding who you're trying to target. So let's do this. Let's talk about, first of all, the target. Who am I trying to get to? This is a much longer presentation. We're probably not going to get through the whole thing, but in this presentation, I talk about, who am I trying to target? Let's say I am a printer and I specialize in printing signs for real estate agents. Okay. Because I've been doing this. Maybe I was a real estate agent one time, opened up a printing franchise, and I see how many bad signs are out there and real estate agents. I'm not picking on real estate agents if there's any agents out there, just using hypothetically. So I know, okay, look, I want to sell to real estate agents these great, cool signs that I use to help draw attention for their open houses or for them. So I know the industry, real estate, companies, accounts. I'm going to look at the top 25 brokerage real estate companies in San Antonio. What's their job function? I know they're the agents. I want the agents and the brokers, they're managers. And geographically, I'm going to focus on San Antonio, maybe just one side, maybe just Stone Oak, maybe just the Northwest side. You see how I'm targeting down to a very specific list of people. And that's where you need to start with this. These are the people I want to sell to.
Once you target a persona, you can try things with them, you pilot them, and then you can figure out what works for them and do that and test and learn your way into finding people like them.
Yes.
But you got to start somewhere, and
but you got to start
with a
somewhere.
real human being is a wonderful idea.
And you'd be surprised if you go, okay, I'm going to pick 25 of these people. How am I going to get to these 25? Well, I'm going to go to LinkedIn and I'm going to have my LinkedIn account, and I'm going to have another product. I use Apollo is one of the products I use, but there's a few of them. The problem with LinkedIn as from the marketing side is you have to either retype the information, and you can export it, but it doesn't have the email addresses anymore. So you don't have that way of communicating, or that doesn't supply that any longer. So you need another tool. And I use Apollo, and what it does is I go in and find who I'm targeting, find that list. It creates a little save button in LinkedIn and I can just save it to this other application that has a list of all of them, it will try to find the email addresses and phone numbers for these people. And if that doesn't work, then I can use another product to do that. But again, all I'm trying to do is using the persona, the slide I talked about earlier, that I know real estate agents, so brokers, the top 25, I know who I'm going after. Use LinkedIn, find all those LinkedIn profiles so that I know that's who I'm trying to target. And keep it simple. Just go out and find 50 or 100 to start out with and save those, create that list, make that list perfect. You know everything about those people. And that's your target list, and then go after them. And you'd be surprised how successful you can be.
Shelley shared in the chat that in addition to LinkedIn, business librarians at a public library can also be a fantastic free resource to have the same thing. I don't know what Apollo is, but
Apollo is just one of many plugins to LinkedIn that just will extract and save content. There's all these different tools to help enhance LinkedIn and make it, basically add things to it. Now, some of them cause problems, so be careful. Do your research on what you use. I'll gladly take any questions. Afterwards, you can contact me. You need to be careful with these because, again, the terms and conditions that these sites won't let you use some of these products and will cut off your account.
Is it trying to give you their contact information?
No, some of them don't allow you. They don't want you to just rip the information out. You're scraping the data, and that can cause some issues. What I found, though, honestly, is that when you're doing it on a very small scale, like I'm talking about, just 50, 100 people, you don't run into very many problems. It's the people that go in there and try to scrape 10,000 emails, names, contacts from LinkedIn. Excuse me.
If for people that are in a larger enterprise, I'm working on an effort where I've learned that we can have a Dun & Bradstreet pixel on a web property that matches to the Dun & Bradstreet. I thought that was interesting.
That is.
Sorry, I didn't mean
Sorry
to
about that.
interrupt your momentum here.
No. You know, I mean, there's great service done in Brad. There's big services that will supply a lot of information, but a lot of us, especially small businesses, the businesses we're targeting are other small businesses that aren't listed on some of these. We can't find the data. There's not a lot of activity on their website. So how do we do that? That's where LinkedIn comes into play.
Right. And you just find the person and then Google them, and you can usually find their email address. If
You
not
just
their
start
phone
digging.
number.
You just start digging.
Right.
Again, just a little time. It's amazing. It's amazing what you can find if you just spend a little time. You find out where they spoke. You find out, you know, Google yourself. It's an interesting thing. I know they always say that. Google yourself and find out, and you'd be amazed at what's out there about you. The other thing is, so you find people on LinkedIn, you narrow it down to 50 or 100, but don't forget events. Again, I'm a big event guy, but go to events that basically have the people you're targeting, that meet that persona criteria, that criteria that you're looking for. And you can find them. It's a little trial and error, just like everything else, but you start finding the right events. And if you don't know what events to go to, you know what? One of the people that you're targeting, or the type of persona you're targeting, call them up, have a meeting with them, say, where do you go? What events do you go to? And usually they'll say, well, I go to the National Association of this, or I like to go to this and all that. So you find out where they're going, and those are the things you go to. Because if they go there, that persona, other ones, similar people go there. Marketing people go to American Marketing Association events, and that's the people you're targeting. So use events. Again, at this point in time, it may be virtual events, but don't underestimate virtual events. As I'm sure Susan can tell you with what she's done with Firecat Friday. I mean, it's very successful. You start meeting people all over all over the country. And people challenged me at first, like, no, virtual doesn't work as well as in-person networking and in-person. It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And in some cases, it's even more effective
Right.
because you see the people you're talking to, you have their name right there in Zoom. You can send them invites to LinkedIn Connect and connect with them and say, hey, we're on this event together today. We're in this networking event. We were in this training. Just thought your business was interesting. Wanted to talk to you. Let's connect. And sure enough, they connect. I did an experiment with 20 people. I did that with at over a couple of days with events I went to. 100% of them accepted my connection, and the majority of them I was able to set up an appointment with to get to know them better.
Yeah.
I mean, it just works.
On this slide, before we move off of it, I just wanted to mention Find Target Events is one channel, but you can also find target groups, target Facebook pages, target LinkedIn groups, right? So
Absolutely.
what you're finding is, where do these people gather?
Yep.
Find where they gather.
Absolutely. The reason I push events so much is, of course, that's the business I'm in. But besides that, I learned that there's no better way to, once you're face to face with a person and you get that, with that rapport, when you meet somebody at an event, it's like you just click. You just click. There's nothing like that, because then usually a lot of those relationships, I go back to the people I'm doing. I do a weekly video show and a podcast. The people I do it with, I met at networking events. I met in person. I go back, a lot of the people I'm doing business with, a lot of the people I deal with on a day-to-day basis, all of them are people I met at an event.
Even Lily, who chimed in the chat to say that she's an INTJ, and she's such an INTJ, but I met her at an event.
All right, let's see. And verify the information. That's pretty simple. Just make sure wherever you keep this information. Again, I used Apollo as an example. It pulls the data in from LinkedIn. If you use a CRM, whatever, just keep the information, verify it, always make sure it's up to date. Because again, if you're focusing on just 50 people, 100 people, you can afford to spend the time and make sure you know as much about them as possible. Because as you're building that relationship, you want to know all about them when you're talking to them, when you're to strike up conversations, when you're just calling them out of the blue and say, Susan will tell you, I do that to you, Susan, don't I? I just call you and say, how's it going? Tell me what's going on.
Yes.
Because I sincerely want to know. You've got to be sincere about this. You got to sincerely want to know about the other person. Yes, I'd love to. I would love Susan to use my services, sponsor the calendar, whatever it may be. But first and foremost, it's the relationship we've had over the years. She may never do any of that, and that's fine. But I know Susan, and the people you build a relationship with, they will tell somebody else, you should be working with this person, or your product would be perfect for, or your service would be perfect for sponsoring a calendar or whatever. Do you agree, Susan?
I 100% agree with that.
And I'm sure you've had many examples over the years you could tell us about that worked exactly that way.
Right.
So the example I was using was the real estate brokers. I know I'm going after a broker. I search for them on LinkedIn. I search for events that are real estate related, real estate training, real estate presentations, and go to them. I meet more agents, and it just snowballs. You just start getting to be known in that industry, and then make sure the information's accurate. How are we doing on time? 25. Okay.
We've still got 20 minutes ish.
Okay. I think earlier we were talking about getting, the spam filters and getting into inboxes and in the challenge of getting through to people. It's very important when you start doing this is you put together a system that will get your emails delivered if you're going to use emails. And again, I encourage you to do that. use social media, use all the other vehicles you have. And I use those other vehicles to get the email addresses and contacts of people I want to add to my list. Because what you're building is a community, a very tight community. And you can control that community by this information, sharing the information. People look to you as the expert in that industry. If I sell, again, into the real estate industry, something to the real estate industry or technology, you've got these group of people you're constantly sharing good information with. They're going to look to you for help. And by that, you're building that relationship.
Right. And it's not, depending on your business, it's not necessarily that your goal is to have a list of, 10,000 names
Exactly.
and email addresses. If you're a small organization and you can really thrive with, in the case of Firecat, we can only really juggle about 12 projects before we're going to go crazy. So we don't need the volume, we need the quality.
And sometimes the volume comes because your content is just so good that then you can be picky and choosy of who you want to do business with.
Right.
Which is the ideal situation. I mean, when we started the calendar, I remember putting on a whiteboard, I hope maybe to get, man, if I could get 2,000, 2,500 subscribers, this is awesome. This would be awesome. At one point before COVID, we were at 16,000 subscribers just in San Antonio alone.
Wow.
I was like, that was just, I wouldn't even have dreamed of having that many subscribers. But again, good content or useful content, and people shared that with other people. Hey, you need to get this content because it helped me do this, or it helps me find the events. And story after story, when I went to events, people would tell me, oh, I've been using your calendar for months and months, and I met this and they start telling me, if I hadn't have seen this event on the calendar and I wouldn't have met this person who did this and that, great stories. I love to hear that stuff.
Can you talk about testing delivery? What are you meaning by that? And then the
so once you have your
too,
delivery,
right?
once you have a good delivery system, start out with a new email. I would start out fresh with a new email address. You've got to make sure you configure that right. So for instance, let's say we're starting from scratch today. You were hiring me to start this process for you. We would get a brand new email account from Google Workspace is what I would recommend. Okay. Then we would set up one or two little programs to help us deliver and track things. But what's important, let's assume we have the content already. So we'll use the events as the contact. But again, it could be podcasts, whatever you find that's best for you. But so again, real estate agents, we've got real estate events that they may be interested in. I want to deliver this to them. But what I need to do is I have to make sure, I have to make sure that email and that domain is set up so that my reputation is good and will get delivered in that inbox. That's the key, is you have to send good emails to good email addresses on a consistent basis, not too many, not over, so that you're flagged as spam. So that's what I mean by delivery test. You want to test this, and there's pieces of software you could write your email. Hey, John, just thought you'd be interested in these events this week and on real estate training, blah, 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 3 or 4 of them. Send it out every week, let's say, as the process. But you send it to these applications, these cloud-based testing services, and it'll tell you, nope, these words aren't good. Nope, it's not going to get delivered. It didn't get delivered to Office 365 inbox. It went to spam. It went to your Google promotions tab, all this stuff. So what you do is you use those results to help you come up with the right email to get right into people's inbox. That's what I mean by testing.
And you know how to do this, and people can hire you to help them with it.
I can help. Yep. I can help them do that. And also I'm putting together a kind of a document that will show you all the tools, because I'm also teaching a 4-part class for UTSA Small Business Development Center. And what we're doing is we're taking each one of these topics. We're taking 4 or 5 different topics in this course. And what I'm doing is I'm putting just a free web page up there that outlines all of this stuff and shows you the tools that you can use to do this yourself. I want all small businesses to be able to do this for them. They just don't have the time to find all the tools to help them do this successfully. That's always been a challenge as a small business owner. All of you can empathize there if you're a small business owner, right? It's that time. But if it's all laid out for you there, you can do it yourself. You don't have the time, I can do it for you. You can hire somebody to do it, but at least you know what needs to be done to begin with. And that's half
Because
the
you're
battle.
investing in all the time to gather the content and come up with the deliverables or the information that you're sharing. You don't want it to just go into the spam filter.
Exactly. And people don't realize it does all the time. When I send an email, 90% of the time when I first come up with an email that I'm sending out to somebody and I run it through one of these testing, it goes into the spam filter.
And the newer your organization is or your effort is, the more important it is to do this. So Firecat, we just talked about at the beginning, we've been doing this since 2008. So we've been whitelisted by a lot of the ISPs.
Yep.
But if you're a new something or other, you're much more likely to get caught in the net.
And some people say, well, I'm just going to use my email address I've had for the last 10 years. I'll just use that one. You can do that, but what you're doing is you're risking that email, that if you get blacklisted on your main email address, then that can cause that's like losing your Facebook account. It's the same idea. So you want to start a new dedicated email just for this process. That's why it's not a quick process where, we can do all this in 30 days and boom. It's a process. You want to warm up that email. Once you get a new email, these spam filters go, oh, that email was just created 30 days ago. It's probably spam. But you want to warm up the email. You want to use some of these services that'll send emails back and forth to show that this email is used consistently to send and receive emails. There's a lot of different things. I don't want to go into too much detail because of the time, but my point here is all these obstacles that you have that you will run into, there are tools out there, and most of them are free. That actually almost all of them are free. That I've found these sites that'll let you do little bits of testing and all for free that you can overcome by using the right tools.
So we've got 10 minutes left.
Okay.
If you guys have questions, this would be a good time to start asking. And at some point we can just bring you up on stage and have a chat if you want, or if you want Michael to keep dishing, because this is super valuable information. Let me know in the chat.
Yeah, let us know in the chat. What do you want to do? Questions? You want me to go through a couple of more? I can go through this pretty quick. A few more ideas here.
Go ahead and keep going and I'll watch the chat. All
right. So sharing process. You got good content. You've set up your email. You're ready to go. So what you want to do is, again, we're not cold emailing. We're just not starting to blast those 25, 50 people that we've targeted. We want to do business with, and I did this. So if I want these companies to use my premium, I have a premium version of our email, that a subscription model that we send out that has more events and a website you can go to and all that stuff. I need to sell that, right? That product is great for the right people. So I've got to target the right people, sales directors, sales managers that want that for their sales team. I could just blast out emails to everybody, but again, not the best way to do it. I need to come up with an email and make an offer. I'm offering them what my offer to them is, not to sell of that product. My offer is, hey, I have a free email that goes out every day with all the events going on in San Antonio. Please use this and share it with your internal sales team. They will find benefits from this by finding the events they should go to. That's it. So that's the offer. They'll go, yeah. So what do? They sign up. They sign up for it. So now I've got their email. Now I know who they are. I can do the research. This company that signed up is a real estate company that has 30 real estate agents. They would be perfect for our paid product. So now I've got their schedule. Now I want to they're going to consistently get my free email, and I can, at some point, they're going to go, well, this is great. This is helpful. And I decide when, based on their usage of and how often they open this email. It's like, wow, they're opening up every day and they're clicking on events and they're seeing all this stuff. They probably will benefit from my paid email. So I call up the sales manager. Hi, this is Michael from San Antonio Business Calendar. Oh yeah. It's an email I get every day. Great. I said, we've got a premium version of this that you might find useful. Seriously? Yeah, let's talk about it. Where if I just cold called him out of the blue or send him an email, hey, we have this, we all get that emails. Oh, do you need help doing this and increasing your sales 10x, blah, blah, blah. What do? You delete it, you ignore it, right? But I've already built that relationship because I've given them this content that is useful. Now, not everybody is going to find it as useful. So I may not get that appointment, or they may not get that warm reception. I may not get that warm reception. But what I have found is, again, the people that use this content, free content, are very open to at least listening to me and what I have to say with the premium version. And that's kind of what we want in selling our product or service. We want that opening to just give me, because they can use it and you can sell it. You've created this product or service that works. You just got to get to the right person, and getting through that right person is the key. And by giving this content, valuable stuff, you have built that virtual relationship with this person. Does that make sense? So.
Yep. And by the fact that they're opening your emails.
Yes, exactly. If they keep opening it, there's interest there. If they're not, and they're, people
Right.
that won't.
Okay. So that's another thing that I have been remiss about. I was just making a note to myself to ask Chris to go, let's do some hygiene on our list, because we've got hundreds of emails, but a lot of them are probably old and not opening. So it's time for us to
cleaning that
grooming,
list.
Right?
You don't want to do it because, like, I don't want to give up that email, but
right, but
no one's opening it.
Right, nope. It's a false signal of connection. They're telling us whether or not they want that if they haven't opened the last, however many.
Yep.
So might as well just stop sending to them and spend a little time getting our message out to the people who might want to engage.
Yeah, you focus your effort. Again, that's that targeted list in a way. That's already a great targeted list that you should be focusing and offering those people that are opening up your email, whatever, hey, let's meet. Let me help you. How can I help you? That kind of thing. And again, a lot of small businesses don't do that. They're so busy out there trying to get new business, which I understand. You're trying to get new stuff, but you've got this group of people that are constantly reading your content that already have a relationship with you, be it just virtually. They're primed to use your product or service, or a new product or service you're offering.
Right. I wanted to just talk briefly about if you're in a larger organization like Mario from the city of San Antonio, the targeting can take on an aspect of segmenting. So think about the different people that the city of San Antonio, let's say, or CPS Energy, let's say, they have to talk to residents. They talk to residents who just happen to be in San Antonio. And then they also talk to the people who have an account that they're the person that has to pay the bill. So the way that you get specific and relevant for those audiences is segmenting. And so we want to be in an email platform that supports segmenting. So for example, Firecat does small business websites. We do micro business, one person websites, and we do enterprise, and we do government. And so to the extent that we can segment, we can have the right conversation with the right people and not just spam everybody with the same.
And there's a different persona for each one of those.
Right.
Yeah. So you know exactly the person and what you develop. You almost can treat them like different little companies. This company does this. This company does this. This company does this.
Yep. Who else has a question? Can you talk a little bit more about how you measure engagement with email?
Yeah. I mean, the nice part about when you send out the content yourself is you have all the analytics you need. You know how many people are opening it. You know how many people are clicking on it. You know how often they're clicking on it. I mean, again, when we send out our emails, we know that right away, 30 or 40% open up and look at the email. Within 12 hours, this many people. Within 24 hours, since we just put out the day's events, boom, nobody opens it anymore because the new one's going to come out. So the nice part, again, by sending out an email and using the right tool, add-on product, so it'll measure the clicks, the open rates, and then you can see who really is engaging with you with this content.
Michael, we're almost at time. Pull up
Yep,
your
okay.
slide that gives us your contact information.
Okay.
Because if you are in the market for having this kind of magic, Michael is a wonderful resource. Like he said, he teaches at the
SBDC.
SBDC. He teaches at UTSA. You can see that he's good at what he does. So
one last thing before I do that, I want to make
Okay.
sure is as you go through all of this and you have your targeted 25, 50 people, you're building this relationship, don't forget about the engagement. Engage at a new level. In other words, besides just the email and social media, or actually add the social media. If you're not adding it, you probably are. But what I mean here is all these 25, 50 people, go to see what they're posting, like what they're doing, engage with them with social media besides getting the email. And then if there's relevant events that are happening that you're finding for them specifically, send them specific emails. Hey, Susan, I really think this UI UX event that they're doing at the chamber here or there, you might be interested in. They're like, wow, thanks. I didn't even know that was happening. Even if they checked the calendar every week, they might miss
I would totally go to that.
Yeah. And do your own podcast or live streams. And what do people go, no, why would I do that? Because what you do by doing a live stream doing your own live stream on Facebook or LinkedIn or doing a podcast, what you're doing is you're doing a regular show and you're inviting these targeted people that you want to build relationships with onto the show about the topic that they know about and that you're selling to that type of industry. So that's an industry you should know. You know how to work with those people and share that information out, because by doing an event with someone, you really build even a higher level of engagement and relationship with them. Even if the podcast doesn't give 20,000 listens and views, at least, you'll find a small little niche of people that'll do it. You just have to do it consistently. I know it's a lot of work. You may not have the time, but it's something you should have on your radar at some point in time as a useful tool. So
pull up your contact info. Speaking of, I don't have time.
There we go.
There we go. Michael at sabusinesscalendar.com. And your phone number's cut off. 210-370.
370-7550. Sorry about that.
7550. All right. We are at time and we like to run the trains on time. If you have ideas for the kinds of sessions that you'd like to see, or the kinds of presenters you'd like to come to Firecat First Friday, drop me an email at susan@firecatstudio.com. I want to thank Chris for co-hosting with me. I have deep gratitude to Michael Espinosa, who, as usual, delivered just completely use it today, meaty insights. And we will see you next month.
Don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. I love questions.
Bye, guys. Have a great
Bye.
rest of your day and stay warm if you're in San Antonio.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Great stuff. Goodbye, everyone. Have fun.